The twin sons of Tarion III cast long orange shadows across the rocky plains. In the distance, a massive alien army had assembled, stretching as far as the eye could see. The ground trembled beneath the synchronized march of creatures from 5 different worlds. Their armor shimmered in strange colors and weapons glinted, reflecting the harsh sunlight. At the center of it all, on a raised platform of black crystal, stood Commander Lyra. She was tall and elegant, with scales that shimmered like polished silver and eyes that seemed to pierce through steel. Her voice, amplified by a bioresonator, rang over the assembled army. "Look at them," she said, her tone both sharp and amused. "The humans. Fragile, small, weak. Do you see any real warriors among them? Do you see anyone who can challenge us?" The soldiers cheered, echoing her laughter across the plains. Lyra's gaze drifted to a distant speck on the horizon. The human settlement appeared almost insignificant. A cluster of low, dome-shaped buildings surrounded by defensive walls made of metal and stone. It seemed vulnerable, a prize waiting to be claimed. "Their weapons are primitive," she continued. "Their strategies are simple. They may fight with courage, but courage alone is not enough. Not against us." A group of young soldiers nudged each other, whispering and pointing at the tiny settlement. "Will it really be that easy?" one of them asked. Lyra smiled, a dangerous glint in her eyes. "Easy?" she said. "Nothing about humans is ever easy. But their weakness makes them predictable. Watch and you will see how quickly they fall." The wind carried her words to the soldiers, and their confidence swelled. They began to chant, a rhythmic beat of alien voices that promised victory. Lyra's mind, however, was not focused solely on the battlefield. Memories of past encounters with humans flickered in her mind. Years ago, she had fought against them on another world. They had been small in number, disorganized, and yet she remembered the sting of surprise. The humans had adapted, improvised, and escaped her grasp. She shook her head, dismissing the thought. Those were minor annoyances, easily corrected. She had learned from her mistakes. She would not underestimate them again. Her attention returned to the present. Scouts reported that the human soldiers had gathered on the walls of the settlement. They were armed with a mix of rifles, cannons, and strange-looking devices that fired glowing projectiles. Lyra squinted, examining their formations. "They try to look strong," she said to herself, "but strength is not measured by appearance. It is measured by power, by skill, and humans have neither. Not enough to stop me." The alien army shifted, preparing for the final march. Massive war machines rumbled across the plains, leaving deep grooves in the rocky soil. Lyra raised a clawed hand, signaling the advance. "Forward," she commanded. "Crush their walls. Show them what it means to face true warriors." As the army moved, a few of the younger soldiers glanced nervously at one another. Some had heard stories of human cunning and resilience. Some had even fought against humans on other worlds and lived to tell the tale. But Lyra's presence reassured them. If anyone could lead them to victory, it was her. The march was relentless. Dust swirled in great clouds around the armored legs of the creatures. Weapons hummed with energy, and the ground vibrated under the weight of the approaching army. Inside the human settlement, the defenders observed the alien approach with wary eyes. Commander Yarrick, the human leader, stood tall on the wall. His face was lined with experience, and his eyes were sharp and calculating. Unlike the aliens, he did not shout or boast. He simply studied the enemy. "They're coming," one of his soldiers said, gripping a rifle tightly. Jarek nodded. "Yes, and they think we are weak. Let them think that. Underestimating us is their first mistake." The soldiers exchanged uneasy glances. They were outnumbered, vastly outnumbered, but they had learned one thing about humans. The more impossible the odds, the fiercer they could fight. Back on the plains, Lyra paused and looked at the human walls again. "It is almost too easy," she murmured. "Their fear is obvious. Their courage will not last. Their defeat is inevitable." Her words were sharp, almost cruel, and the soldiers around her responded with renewed confidence. They began preparing their weapons, testing energy beams and plasma cannons, making sure each soldier was ready for the attack. Lyra's scouts reported that the humans were still standing on the walls, unbroken and alert. She smiled. "Good," she said. "Let them see us. Let them tremble before our might. The longer they watch, the harder the fall will be." Suddenly, a small group of aliens approached her platform. They were diplomats and spies from other worlds, creatures who preferred cunning over strength. They bowed low before Lyra and spoke in whispers. "Commander," one said, "there is something, Unusual. A human separate from the others, alone, watching. Lyra's silver eyes narrowed. Alone? She asked. A single human against our army? Surely this is some kind of trick. It seems genuine, another replied. No weapons, no reinforcements, yet there is a presence. Strong, calm, different from the others. Lyra's lips curled into a faint smile. Interesting, she said. Bring this human forward. Let us see if their courage matches their foolishness. The spies hesitated, unsure how to approach the lone figure. Lyra waved them away. No, wait, let them come to us. Let them show themselves. This will be amusing. The alien army moved closer to the human settlement. Dust and smoke swirled around the edges of the battlefield. The humans held their ground, silent but tense, waiting for the first attack. Lyra looked down at the planes and imagined the chaos she would unleash. War machines would crush walls, energy blasts would tear through buildings, and the humans would fall one by one. She almost laughed aloud at the thought. Her attention returned to the lone human reported by the spies. She scanned the walls with her enhanced vision. The figure was small, almost invisible against the backdrop of the settlement, but there was something unmistakable in the stance. Calm, patient, unafraid. Foolish human, Lyra whispered, do you truly believe you can face us alone? And yet there was a spark of curiosity in her tone. This human, different from the others. Could it be that legends were true? That humans could be more than they appeared? For now she would wait. She would watch. The first strike had not yet begun, but already the story of this battlefield was taking shape. The wind carried the cries of distant birds, though the plains were mostly barren. The dust rose like smoke, twisting around the alien army as it advanced. The suns glared down, relentless and harsh. Lyra lifted her hand again. Prepare yourselves, she commanded. The humans will soon see the power of a true army. And when they fall, they will know the cost of underestimating us. From the walls of the settlement, the lone human watched the approaching army with quiet focus. No fear showed on the face. No hesitation. Only calm. And somewhere deep within the vast alien ranks, a tiny voice of doubt whispered. Could one human really stand against all of them? Lyra did not notice. Not yet. The plain stretched wide. The suns beat down. The dust swirled. And the battlefield waited silent for the storm that was about to begin. The twin suns had begun to sink lower, casting longer shadows across the rocky plains of Tarian Threed. The alien army advanced in perfect formation, their war machines rumbling with power, shaking the ground beneath them. Commander Lyra stood tall on her platform, silver scales glinting in the sunlight, her eyes scanning the human settlement. Every movement, every defensive position was noted. She had expected fear. She had expected humans to tremble. Yet the settlement remained quiet. Inside the walls, humans moved with precise coordination. Soldiers checked their weapons, loaded rifles, and adjusted the strange glowing cannons they had constructed. Civilians hurried to safety, guided by disciplined human leaders. It was a small, sturdy community, seemingly fragile, yet its calm efficiency told a different story. Among them, one figure stood apart, silent, motionless. Not a single sound betrayed their presence. The figure watched the alien army as if seeing every detail at once. The spacing of soldiers, the strength of war machines, the pattern of energy pulses in alien weapons. Every movement was catalogued, analyzed, calculated. Commander Jarek, a soldier whispered, leaning close, look at him. He's different, calm. Jarek did not turn. His eyes were sharp, fixed on the distant alien ranks. Yes, he said softly, different indeed. He is the Sentinel. Watch carefully. One human alone may be enough to change everything. The soldiers exchanged nervous glances. Tales of the Sentinel were legend among human colonies, a warrior who had appeared at critical moments, turning hopeless situations into victories, always remaining calm and unseen until the moment of action. Few had actually seen him, and even fewer survived to tell the tale. Back on the plains, Lyra's scouts reported the lone human. Commander, one said, there is a human separate from the others. Alone, silent, watching. No weapons drawn, no signs of reinforcements, yet there is a strange presence, strong, commanding. Lyra's silver eyes narrowed. A single human? She asked, her tone sharp. Do you mean to tell me that one human dares to challenge all of us? The scouts hesitated. It is unusual, but genuine. No trickery detected. Lyra's lips curled into a faint, amused smile. Interesting, she whispered. Let us see what courage or foolishness can do against an army such as ours. As the alien army continued its advance, dust and sand swirled around massive legs and rumbling war machines. Alien voices chanted in rhythm, a sound meant to intimidate and inspire at the same time. Lyra raised her hand to signal the first strike, ready to unleash the destructive power of her forces on the human settlement. And then, as if sensing the calm before the storm, the lone human moved. It was not sudden, not violent. The movement was subtle. A shift of weight, a slight adjustment of stance. The human's eyes scanned the battlefield. Every alien formation, every weapon, every weak point was observed. Yet there was no fear. Only calm, unbroken focus. Lyra noticed this movement through her enhanced vision. She raised an eyebrow. She murmured. Even alone, they dare to face us. Perhaps I underestimated this one. A ripple of curiosity passed through the alien ranks. Soldiers whispered to each other, eyes shifting toward the human figure. Some laughed nervously, mocking the lone human. One tiny creature against our entire army? Ridiculous. Lyra silenced them with a flick of her clawed hand. Watch, she said, her voice carrying authority. This human will not falter as you expect, but it will not change the outcome. We are too strong, too many, too prepared. From the walls, Jarek studied the same scene. He could see Lyra's platform, the massed alien army and the war machine straining to maintain formation over the rocky terrain. He looked to the lone human, whose eyes reflected no fear, only determination. You know what to do, Jarek whispered, his hand resting briefly on the human's shoulder. The moment is yours. Show them what humanity can do. The human gave a single nod, silent, calm, like a shadow moving through the settlement. Soldiers and civilians watched in awe, inspired by the silent figure whose reputation alone could spark hope. Then the first wave of alien scouts approached the walls, expecting to encounter minimal resistance. They carried weapons designed to pierce human armor, to overwhelm the defenders before they could react. But the sentinel was not among the walls. He was out in the open, a single figure standing between the alien scouts and the settlement. Lyra noticed him clearly now. Her silver eyes narrowed and she leaned forward on the platform. Such audacity, she hissed. A single human standing against us. Let us see how quickly they fall. The aliens advanced. Blaster fire crackled in the air, energy beams slicing the ground near the human warrior. Yet every movement of the sentinel was precise. He dodged, ducked, and twisted in ways that seemed impossible for a human. A sudden leap, a roll, a sweep of his arm deflected an incoming strike with an improvised shield. The scouts faltered. Their confidence wavered. The precision, speed, and calm of the lone human disrupted their formations. Lyra's amusement turned to sharp attention. Impossible, she whispered. A human. Moving with such skill. The human pressed forward, taking advantage of every opening, striking without reckless aggression. Each action was calculated, every step considered. The alien scouts had expected panic, weakness, hesitation. They found none. Instead, they faced a focused, unyielding opponent who seemed to anticipate their every move. Back on the walls, Jarek watched closely. His hand rested lightly on the human's shoulder again, as if acknowledging that the fate of the settlement rested, at least in part, on the single warrior. Steady, he murmured. Do not be reckless, but do not hesitate. The alien scouts, disoriented by the unexpected resistance, began to retreat slightly. Lyra's eyes blazed. Hold them, she commanded. Do not let them disrupt our formation. Crush them. Yet every attempt to encircle or overwhelm the sentinel failed. The human moved like water, slipping through the strongest defenses, exploiting even the smallest weakness in the alien tactics. Each strike was a demonstration of not just skill, but intelligence, human intelligence that could see the battlefield as a whole, understanding patterns, predicting movements, and striking at the precise moment. Alien morale began to falter. Whispers spread among the ranks. One human. Against all of us? Lyra's tail lashed with irritation. Silence, she roared. Do not let one creature make fools of you. Attack as a unit. Use your numbers. Do not fail me. Despite her command, the alien soldiers hesitated. They had never encountered such a human before, not one in the histories of the Allied worlds. Even in stories, humans were clever, but none had faced them so directly, so fearlessly, and yet so strategically. The Sentinel advanced steadily. Small, precise movements caused confusion and chaos among the alien scouts. Weapons misfired. War machines collided, and the soldiers began to retreat in disarray. It was as if the human warrior's presence alone had unsettled the alien army. Lyra's amusement turned to a frown. "How?" she whispered. "How can one human cause this much disruption?" The wind carried the sound of alien weapons clashing and war machines groaning. Dust and debris swirled around the battlefield, but through it all the human remained calm, unbroken, precise. Jarek's voice came again, low but firm. "Do not stop. Keep moving. Make them see what humans are capable of." The Sentinel nodded slightly, silent. There was no showiness, no grand gestures, only efficiency, precision, and unstoppable focus. Step by step, the alien scouts were pushed back, their formation broken. One by one, they retreated, leaving the battlefield slightly quieter but still tense. Lyra's silver eyes glinted with a mixture of frustration and fascination.
"One human," she whispered, "and already the battlefield is changing."
"This is new." The suns dipped lower, casting a golden hue over the plains. Dust swirled, war machines rumbled, and the alien army began to realize that this human was no ordinary soldier. The story of the day was shifting. The legend of the Sentinel had become real before their very eyes, and as the alien army hesitated, the humans inside the settlement began to draw courage from the lone figure on the battlefield. Whispers of hope spread like fire. One human, silent, calm, and determined, was enough to inspire an entire settlement. The battlefield, which had once seemed like a place of certain human defeat, now held the promise of resistance. The alien army had mocked, laughed, and boasted, but they had not counted on this. Not counted on the power of human skill, ingenuity, and calm determination. Lyra watched carefully, her mind calculating, her pride stung. The first strike had not yet begun in earnest, yet already the silence of the battlefield, the focused attention of every combatant on the human, was remarkable. The Sentinel remained alone, a single shadow of humanity standing against overwhelming odds, and in that shadow a promise. Humanity would not be defeated so easily. The plains of Tarion III had become a place of quiet tension. Dust swirled around shattered rocks and the tracks of war machines. The alien army, vast and imposing, hesitated as their scouts fell back in disarray. Commander Lyra's silver eyes scanned the battlefield, sharp and calculating. She had faced many enemies, but none had moved like this human warrior. None had struck with such precision, such intelligence, and such calm. Lyra's tail lashed behind her in frustration. "How can one human disrupt so many?" she hissed. "This is impossible." The Sentinel, standing alone against the advancing alien forces, adjusted his stance. Every muscle was relaxed but ready, like a spring coiled and prepared to strike. He did not shout, he did not taunt. His presence alone commanded attention. Alien soldiers faltered as he moved. Each step was deliberate, each motion calculated. The first real clash began with a single wave of alien soldiers. They moved cautiously, thinking they could surround him with numbers. Yet the Sentinel's eyes had already calculated every angle. As the first attackers lunged, he sidestepped, knocking one aside with a swift motion of his arm and deflecting another with a piece of jagged metal scavenged from the battlefield. The aliens were shocked. This was not supposed to happen. One human alone should not have been able to withstand a single strike, let alone counterattack. And yet here he was, moving with unmatched precision. "Stop!" Lyra roared. "Do not let him advance. Crush him before he reaches our main forces." The alien soldiers regrouped and tried again, forming a tighter formation. Plasma blades hummed and energy cannons glowed with anticipation. The Sentinel studied them calmly, reading their movements like an open book. He used their own momentum against them. When an alien leapt forward, he sidestepped and sent the attacker tumbling into another. A chain reaction of confusion spread through the formation. The battle had begun, and already the tide was shifting. Inside the human settlement, Commander Jarek watched carefully from the walls. His eyes followed every movement of the Sentinel. "Look at how he moves," Jarek murmured. "Not brute force, a strategy, intelligence, that is humanity's true strength." The soldiers below nodded, inspired. They had feared the alien army. but seeing one human take on dozens without faltering had renewed their courage. They whispered among themselves, recalling stories of human ingenuity and resilience. Now they understood those stories were real. The aliens regrouped once more, this time bringing in more war machines. Massive quadrupeds bristling with energy cannons rumbled forward, shaking the ground with every step. The Sentinel did not flinch. He leapt onto a jagged rock, using it as a platform to dodge the first blast of energy that could have shattered a normal human. Each move was graceful, efficient, and precise. Lyra narrowed her eyes. So much skill. For a human, she muttered, her voice almost a whisper of disbelief. Impressive. But skill alone cannot save them. A second wave of alien soldiers charged. They had learned to fear the first wave, but still believed in the overwhelming power of numbers. The Sentinel waited, analyzing their formation, noticing subtle weaknesses. A slight hesitation here, a misaligned weapon there. Then with a fluid motion, he struck. A well-timed kick sent one soldier crashing into another. A quick sweep of his arm deflected energy blasts. Every action was perfectly measured. The aliens faltered again. Confusion spread like wildfire. Soldiers shouted, tried to regroup. But the precision of the human warrior left them off balance. Even the war machine stumbled, colliding into rocks and one another. Dust and smoke filled the air, but through it all the Sentinel remained calm, focused, untouchable. Lyra's voice rang out over the battlefield. "Enough!" she commanded. "Use everything. Crush him. Show him the strength of our alliance." And yet every attempt failed. The human anticipated their every move, turning their strength against them. When an energy cannon fired, the Sentinel rolled under it, using a fallen piece of metal to redirect the blast into a group of approaching aliens. The soldiers screamed, retreating as chaos spread. Jarek's soldiers began to move. Inspired by the Sentinel, they took up positions on the walls and behind barricades. Human rifles and cannons fired in coordinated volleys, striking at the alien soldiers who had been disrupted by the Sentinel's actions. The battlefield, once dominated by alien forces, had begun to change. Lyra's frustration grew. She had expected fear, hesitation, panic, but none of that had appeared. The humans were not just resisting. They were striking back, coordinated and fearless. Her mind raced. "Impossible," she hissed. One human alone is changing everything?" The Sentinel moved again, not in reckless aggression, but with calm precision. He intercepted a war machine as it tried to flank him. Using the machine's own momentum, he flipped it over, sending it crashing into a nearby formation. Alien soldiers shouted in shock, scrambling to regain control. A hush fell over the battlefield. Even the most confident aliens stopped to watch, their pride shaken. Commander Lyra's own soldiers began to whisper. "Can one human really do this?" "Yes," Lyra said softly, almost to herself. "Yes, I see it now. He is extraordinary. But extraordinary alone is not enough. Numbers will win eventually." The Sentinel did not rely on numbers. He used strategy, intelligence, and human adaptability. When surrounded, he created openings. When outnumbered, he exploited weaknesses. His movements were a combination of speed, precision, and timing. The aliens had expected fear. They found none. A group of aliens attempted to charge from the side, trying to surround him. The Sentinel anticipated their plan. With a sudden burst of speed, he intercepted one group, causing a domino effect as the soldiers collided with one another. Dust and smoke rose from the battlefield, obscuring their vision, and confusion spread further. Jarek watched carefully. "This is why humans endure," he said quietly. "Adaptability, ingenuity, courage. Not raw strength alone, but the combination of all three." The human soldiers cheered softly, seeing the battlefield change before their eyes. They had feared overwhelming defeat, but now hope stirred. If one human could disrupt the alien army, perhaps the settlement could survive. Perhaps they could even fight back. Lyra's tail lashed again. Her pride would not allow her to admit defeat, yet she could see that the battle was not going as planned. One human had shifted the entire dynamic. The arrogance she had felt before now battled with a grudging respect. The Sentinel moved closer to the heart of the alien formation, dodging, weaving, and striking with precision. Alien formations that had seemed impenetrable began to fracture under his relentless efficiency. Every attack, every defensive move was a lesson in human skill and determination. The battlefield had become a dance of precision and chaos. Aliens moved with fear in their eyes, unsure how to deal with one warrior who seemed almost superhuman. Dust, debris, and the sounds of clashing metal filled the air, yet the Sentinel remained focused, calm, and unbroken. Lyra finally realized what had to be done. She would confront the human herself. Her silver eyes burned with determination and curiosity. "If one human can do this," she said, "I will see their skill for myself." The alien army faltered slightly as she descended from her platform, moving toward the human. Her presence alone reminded everyone of her strength and command. Yet even as she approached, the Sentinel did not flinch. He remained focused, ready for whatever challenge came next. The plains of Tarion III were silent for a moment, as if the world itself waited for the clash of legends. One alien commander confident in her army and one human, calm, precise, and determined, now faced each other across a battlefield that had begun to fall under the sway of human skill and courage. The first true battle had begun, and already the tide had begun to turn. The sun had begun its slow descent behind the jagged mountains of Tarion III, casting long shadows across the battlefield. Dust and smoke from the ongoing skirmishes hung thick in the air, mixing with the hum of alien machinery and the occasional roar of weapons. The once confident alien army now hesitated, unsure of how to proceed. One human, the Sentinel, had changed everything. Commander Lyra's silver eyes scanned the battlefield with sharp precision. She had faced countless enemies, countless threats, but never one like this. The human moved with a calm efficiency that defied logic. Every strike, every dodge, every decision seemed premeditated and perfect. He was not just a warrior. He was a force of nature. "Impossible," Lyra muttered, her voice tight with frustration. "One human, and the battlefield is unraveling." Her tail lashed behind her as she stepped off her platform. Her armor glinted in the dying sunlight and her weapons hummed with power. She would not let one human undermine her army. Not now. Not ever. The Sentinel had already noticed her movement. His eyes, calm and calculating, followed Lyra as she advanced across the battlefield. Dust swirled around her armored legs and alien soldiers parted instinctively, giving her a clear path to confront him. Jarek, watching from the walls of the human settlement, gripped the edge of the parapet. "This is the moment," he whispered to the soldiers around him. "All we need is courage, and hope becomes reality." The Sentinel adjusted his stance, ready for the confrontation. He had faced overwhelming odds before, but never like this, a single commander leading an entire army. Yet he remained calm, unshaken, his focus absolute. Lyra approached steadily, her voice ringing across the battlefield. "Human," she called, "you have disrupted my army. You have displayed skill, but skill alone will not save you. Surrender, and I may spare your people." The Sentinel did not reply, not with words. His eyes met hers, unwavering, unflinching. The silence spoke louder than any shout. It was a challenge, a statement of confidence that shook even the hardened soldiers around them. Lyra's lips curled into a faint smile, one that held both amusement and respect. "So be it," she said softly. "Then we shall see how one human fares against all of us." The alien army, sensing the tension, began to advance again. Soldiers moved cautiously, keeping their distance from the human warrior. War machines rumbled forward, their weapons glowing, ready to strike. Yet even the machines seemed uncertain, as if they could sense the presence of someone extraordinary. The Sentinel moved first. He did not rush recklessly into the mass of aliens. Instead, he used the terrain, the rocks, and the debris to his advantage. Every movement was precise. He dodged energy blasts, deflected attacks, and used the aliens' momentum against them. One by one, small groups of soldiers were disrupted, creating pockets of chaos in the advancing army. Lyra observed, her eyes narrowing. "Clever," she murmured. "But cleverness alone will not win. Numbers and strength will prevail." She raised her weapons, energy blades crackling in her hands. With a sudden burst of speed, she leapt toward the Sentinel. Her claws aimed to strike decisively. The human met her movement with a calm sidestep, narrowly avoiding the attack and countered with a swift strike that forced her to retreat slightly. The battlefield held its breath. Alien soldiers stopped, unsure of how to act. The human warrior alone had not only resisted their advance but now seemed capable of challenging their commander directly. Lyra's expression hardened. "So be it," she said, voice firm. "We will end this now." She moved with incredible speed, attacking with precision that only a commander of her skill could manage. Each strike was calculated to test the human's reflexes, to find weaknesses, to end the confrontation quickly. Yet the Sentinel met each attack with a combination of timing, strategy, and adaptability. He did not strike recklessly, but when he did attack, it was with purpose and force. The clash between them was intense but silent compared to the rest of the battlefield. Sparks flew from the meeting of energy blades and makeshift defenses. Each movement was swift, almost too fast for the naked eye to follow. Dust rose around them as they shifted positions, creating a whirlwind of motion that drew the attention of every soldier and civilian nearby. Meanwhile, the human soldiers within the settlement took action. Seeing their champion stand against the alien commander inspired them. They fired coordinated volleys at isolated alien groups, disrupted supply lines, and sabotaged war machines. The battlefield was no longer one-sided. The aliens had lost their rhythm, their confidence shaken by the precision and courage of a single human. Lyra noticed the human soldiers' movements. Impressive, she admitted to herself. But they are not enough. Yet even she could feel the shift. The alien army, once confident and mocking, was now hesitant. Every move was measured, cautious. Soldiers whispered among themselves, questioning the invincibility they had assumed for themselves. The humans were no longer passive. They were active participants in a battle that seemed almost impossible. The Sentinel moved again, taking advantage of the chaos he had created. He intercepted a group of aliens attempting to flank him, using their own force against them. One alien was sent tumbling into another, and another collided with a war machine, sending sparks and smoke into the air. The tide of battle had begun to turn. The aliens, who had once marched with pride and certainty, now found themselves reacting instead of controlling. One human, using intelligence, adaptability, and courage, had disrupted an entire army's rhythm. Lyra's frustration grew, but so did her respect. Perhaps I underestimated them, she admitted quietly. Not skill alone, but strategy, courage, and intelligence. They are more than I imagined. She lunged again, faster and more determined than before. The Sentinel met her strike with a combination of deflection and counterattack, forcing her to retreat once more. Every movement between them drew gasps from nearby soldiers. Even the veteran aliens began to realize that this human was not ordinary. From the walls of the settlement, Jarek watched with pride. "See how he fights," he whispered. "Not with rage, not with recklessness, but with intelligence and focus. That is the strength of humanity." The human soldiers echoed his sentiment. Their cheers were small but growing louder, giving strength to one another. Inspired, they pushed forward, taking advantage of the disarray in the alien ranks. Every small victory added to the morale, and the aliens could feel it. Confidence began to crumble, one moment at a time. Lyra realized she could not rely solely on her army. The human skill, intelligence, and leadership had shifted the entire battlefield. If she did not act decisively, the humans could turn this defense into a counterattack. She leapt higher, her energy blades spinning, and aimed directly at the Sentinel. He prepared himself, waiting, calculating. The moment was tense, each movement a dance of precision. With a burst of speed, the Sentinel dodged, rolling to the side, and struck back with incredible force. Lyra stumbled, barely avoiding a direct hit. The battlefield fell silent for a moment, all eyes on the two warriors. Then, the humans seized the opportunity. They advanced in coordinated waves, targeting disorganized alien soldiers and disabled war machines. Every action was calculated, every move precise. The alien army had lost momentum. What had begun as a march of confidence had become a struggle for survival. Lyra's frustration was evident, but so was a new respect. One human alone had changed the course of the battle. The Sentinel's presence had inspired courage, strategy, and determination in an entire settlement. The battlefield of Terion III, once a place of alien arrogance, now belonged to the humans. Step by step the tide was turning, and at the center of it all stood one human warrior, calm, focused, and unstoppable. The suns dipped lower, painting the plains in shades of orange and gold. Dust swirled, war machines groaned, and the alien army faltered. One human, against all odds, had turned despair into hope. Lyra stopped, assessing the battlefield. The time had come. She would confront the human directly, no longer allowing the army to act independently. The final clash between the human and the alien commander was inevitable. and in that moment the battlefield seemed to hold its breath. One human, alone yet unstoppable, had turned the tide. The story of courage, strategy, and the strength of humanity was unfolding in real time. The clash of legends was about to reach its peak. The suns of Tarian III hung low in the sky, casting long golden shadows over a battlefield now strewn with debris, dust, and the remnants of shattered alien war machines. The air was thick with smoke and the hum of disabled energy cannons. The alien army, once confident and arrogant, was scattered and faltering. For the first time in her career, Commander Lyra felt doubt. The Sentinel stood at the center of the chaos, a lone figure of calm determination. His armor was scratched and dust coated his cloak, but his posture was unwavering. Every motion he made was measured, precise, and effective. He had fought tirelessly, using strategy, intelligence, and human adaptability to turn despair into hope. Now all eyes were on him. Lyra descended from her platform, energy blades humming with deadly power. Her silver eyes locked onto the human. "Enough," she called, her voice echoing across the battlefield. "You have disrupted my army. Now face me directly, human. Let us see who truly deserves victory." The Sentinel did not respond with words. A silent nod was all that acknowledged her presence. His focus remained absolute, unbroken by the chaos around him. The alien soldiers who remained behind him paused, uncertain whether to advance or retreat. Jarek watched from the walls of the settlement. "This is it," he whispered to the soldiers beside him. "The final confrontation. Courage, focus, and determination will decide everything." The Sentinel advanced steadily toward Lyra. Each step was deliberate, every movement calculated. Alien soldiers parted instinctively, unwilling to interfere with the inevitable duel. The air itself seemed to hold its breath as two extraordinary warriors prepared to face each other. Lyra lunged first, her energy blades slicing through the dust-filled air. She moved with incredible speed. Every strike aimed to end the confrontation immediately. The Sentinel met her attack with fluid motion, sidestepping, deflecting, and countering with perfectly timed strikes of his own. Sparks flew as blade met shield, and the sound of energy crackling filled the air. The duel was a dance of skill and strategy. Lyra struck with raw power, precision, and experience. The Sentinel responded with agility, intelligence, and an unshakable calm. Each movement was deliberate, every decision perfectly timed. Neither would yield. Around them, the battlefield was changing. Human soldiers, inspired by the presence of their champion, pushed forward with precision. They struck at isolated alien soldiers, disabled war machines, and disrupted supply lines. The alien army, already weakened by the Sentinel's prior actions, faltered further. Morale was collapsing, confidence eroding under the influence of a single human warrior. Lyra's frustration grew. She had underestimated humanity, and it was clear now. The humans were not merely resilient, they were strategic, adaptable, and fearless. One human had altered the balance of power. Her pride demanded she finish this duel herself, and she lunged again with renewed ferocity. The Sentinel anticipated her attack. With swift movement, he used her momentum against her, sending her sliding across the rocky terrain. Lyra regained her balance quickly, her eyes narrowing. She had expected skill, but not this level of precision and intelligence. Around them, the alien soldiers hesitated. They had been taught to follow Lyra's commands, to act without question. Yet here their commander struggled against a single human, and hesitation spread like wildfire. The tide of battle was unmistakably shifting. The Sentinel advanced again, moving with calm precision. Every action was intentional. Every movement disrupted the alien formations further. War machines toppled, soldiers collided, and dust swirled in chaotic patterns. The battlefield was no longer dominated by raw power, but by strategy, courage, and the indomitable will of humanity. Lyra's voice rang out across the battlefield. "Enough!" she roared, summoning what remained of her forces. "Attack together. Focus all energy on the human. Crush him before he inspires any more of your soldiers." But it was too late. The human soldiers had regained courage, inspired by the calm and skill of the Sentinel. They coordinated attacks with precision, targeting the remaining alien soldiers and disabled war machines. The battlefield had shifted. The aliens could no longer control the flow of battle. They reacted instead of initiating. The Sentinel dodged another series of attacks, moving closer to Lyra with each step. The duel between them had become the focal point of the entire battlefield. Every strike, every movement drew the attention of all combatants. Dust rose, sparks flew, and the clash of skill and power resonated across the plains. Lyra struck again, faster and stronger, yet the human matched her every move. He did not rely on strength alone. He relied on observation, intelligence, and perfect timing. Each attack she made was countered. Each strategy she attempted was anticipated. The Sentinel was more than a warrior. He was the embodiment of human resilience and adaptability. Around them, the alien army began to break. Soldiers fled from disorganized formations. War machines sputtered and failed, and chaos spread like fire. Even Lyra's most loyal troops could not maintain order. The humans had seized the initiative, their courage amplified by the example set by one human warrior. Lyra's silver eyes burned with both frustration and a grudging respect. "Extraordinary," she whispered. "One human. Against all of this, how?" The Sentinel did not answer. He pressed forward with unwavering determination. He would not let arrogance or fear dictate the outcome. Every strike, every movement was precise, efficient, and unstoppable. Finally, the moment came. Lyra made a decisive attack, hoping to end the duel once and for all. The Sentinel sidestepped with perfect timing, using her momentum to create an opening. With a swift, precise strike, he disarmed her, sending her weapons clattering across the rocky terrain. For the first time, Lyra stumbled backward, surprised and caught off guard. The battlefield fell silent. Alien soldiers froze, unsure whether to advance or flee. Human soldiers watched in awe, cheering softly, inspired by the victory of their champion. The Sentinel stood tall, his eyes fixed on Lyra, calm and unwavering. Lyra rose to her feet, pride still burning in her gaze, but she could not deny the truth. One human had changed the battlefield. One human had inspired courage, disrupted an entire army, and turned despair into hope. She bowed her head slightly in acknowledgement of the skill she had faced. The alien army, demoralized and defeated, began to retreat. War machines sputtered, energy cannons went silent, and soldiers fled the plains. Lyra gathered what remained of her forces, her expression a mixture of frustration and respect. Humans were not weak, not fragile. They were formidable, intelligent, and unyielding. The Sentinel turned to the settlement, his duty complete. Soldiers and civilians emerged from behind barricades and shelters, their cheers echoing across the battlefield. They had survived. They had fought back. They had witnessed courage, strategy, and skill embodied in one human warrior. Jarek approached, placing a hand on the Sentinel's shoulder. "You have done more than defend us," he said quietly. "You have shown the strength of humanity. You have inspired hope where there was fear." The Sentinel nodded silently, his work done. He did not seek praise or recognition. His presence alone had changed the course of the battle, and that was enough. The sun set completely behind the mountains, painting the sky with deep shades of orange and gold. Dust settled, and the battlefield grew quiet. The alien army had been defeated, not by sheer numbers, but by intelligence, courage, and determination. One human had made all the difference. Lyra's forces retreated into the horizon, leaving behind the broken remnants of their once mighty army. Her mind was filled with new understanding. Humans were not to be underestimated. They were adaptable, courageous, and capable of extraordinary feats. The stories she had dismissed as exaggeration were now undeniable truth. The Sentinel walked toward the settlement, disappearing into the shadows as quietly as he had appeared. Stories of his deeds would spread across human colonies, inspiring courage, strategy, and hope for generations to come. One human had stood alone against overwhelming odds and had not only survived, but had turned the tide of battle. The battlefield fell silent. The humans celebrated quietly, honoring the skill and courage of the lone warrior who had inspired them. And far away in the shadows of the mountains, the aliens would remember that one human was more than enough to change the course of history. The story of that day, of courage and skill, of intelligence and determination, would be told for generations. And in every telling it would begin with one truth: never underestimate humanity. The Sentinel had appeared, and the battlefield had fallen silent.